Hello, I'm Dr. Jennifer Smith, licensed psychologist and CEO at LinkCare. I'm joined today by Meg Slavosky, licensed marriage and family therapist, and Joni Joy, marriage and family therapist trainee. We're coming today to talk about the recent COVID-19 outbreak and the distress that you are most likely feeling right now. It's very normal to experience anxiety, worry, fear. All of these kinds of things are coming up for us. This is a season of great uncertainty and tremendous changes every hour, it seems like. So I'm wondering, Meg, if you could share a little bit with us now about what we can expect during this season.
Well, this is a season of unknowns. We don't know much. Well, according to the articles and the news, there's a lot of unknowns about the COVID-19 coronavirus. And that can create a lot of insecure, unstable feelings, and maybe even triggering our feelings of safety. And a lot of times when that happens, there's these symptoms that you might experience, like Jennifer said, anxiety and even fatigue. There's all kinds of things that you can experience as a result of having your safety, the sense of your safety affected. So one of the interesting things about that is that our brain, we're wired for safety, we're wired to connect. And sometimes, depending on our life experiences, will determine the hair trigger of what we experience when we don't feel safe. That is fight, flight, or freeze. So we have this primitive part of our brain called the amygdala, and that's the emotional center. And when that is affected in any way, and it creates some sort of a feeling of dread, fear, what can happen is we can go into fight, flight, or freeze, and sometimes when that happens, it's hard to know how to recover from that. But it's different for everyone. But a better way to acquire safety would be to, connection. Not only are we wired for safety, but we're wired for connection too. So there's things that you can do to be able to feel connected to your community, your environment. You can be of service to your neighbor, even if it's texting, or let's say your neighbor is 65 or older and can't leave, then maybe finding out if you can bring some groceries to her or his doorstep. Toilet paper, I mean, my goodness, there's a lot of things that can happen that can create all kinds of anxiety and panic with not enough. This is part of what happens in the fight, flight, or freeze when we're triggered with our safety issues. So what happens sometimes too is that kind of fear can be contagious, and that's what we saw, the Costco lines, and what happens a lot of times is that alarm can make people think that they need to follow that person in front of them who's in alarm mode, who is in fight, flight, or freeze. And so part of this idea that you have to get all of the toilet paper and water in Costco has to do a lot with the contagion part of that kind of alarm. And also, because we don't have a sense of control when we feel like we're being threatened, that we're not safe, sometimes we just gravitate towards things that we can control, like water and toilet paper. So I think what happens for us as humans is that we need to feel safe. And that's the first and foremost thing that tends to get affected in these kind of unknown environments.
Yeah, so a variety of responses that can happen, and how we manage them is so unique and different based on our experiences. Joni, I'd love to hear from you about some practical ways maybe that we can address some of these fears that are coming up and the anxiety we might be feeling.
Sure. Yeah, kind of like what Meg was saying, you have that alarm system go off, and so we have all this access to information at our fingertips. And so it feels like if you know what's going on, sort of have that enemy close kind of response, then you'll feel better because at least you know what's happening. But actually, it's the opposite that helps us to feel less anxiety and to feel a little more sense of control. And so one of the things you can do for yourself is just limit the amount of media that you take in. That includes social media and Facebook, news sources. And also be really mindful of which sources you even choose to read. There are some really just outrageous titles out there like, half the human population is going to die from this if we don't do something. And really what we're actually doing is a lot of preventative measures. And so just to surround yourself with sources that are a little more reliable and not so outrageous. The other thing to do is to, like Meg said, connect with your community. It's an interesting time. We normally like to gather when crisis happens, and now we have to be separate for our own safety. But thankfully we do have access to social media, or to phones and to FaceTime and different technology that allows us to support each other. I recently heard about a family that the grandfather is calling in to FaceTime and he's reading a story at night to his grandchildren. So that's something that you could do, especially if you're in the population that is vulnerable and has to be more isolated. So those are a couple things I would think about.
Oh, those are really helpful. I think in addition to that, there's probably some very practical settling breathing types of techniques we can do. Meg is well versed in this. Could you share one or two with us?
Sure. So sometimes what can happen is that we can feel a lot of anxiety that will create, pressure, heart racing, palms sweating, and what's really going on is that fight or flight kind of feeling that's going on. And so we can do what I've heard is called square breathing or rectangle breathing. And so what we'll do is we'll breathe in on 4, we'll hold on 2, and we'll breathe out on 8. So in order to bring down the anxiety in your system, breathing out longer than you breathe in can actually release a chemical onto your heart that will slow it down. So we'll go in on 4. So we're going to breathe on 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2. Now we're going to go out on 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The longer you can breathe out, the more you can bring down your heart rate so you can feel better. Now there's a different kind of breathing when you need to bring energy in your system. Let's say that you're going into some sort of depression. You can't seem to get off the couch. There's this feeling that that's hopelessness maybe. So with that would be called square breathing, which means that you breathe in on 4, you hold on 2, out on 4, hold on 2. So let's go in on 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, hold, 1, 2, out. 1, 2, 3, 4, hold, 1, 2. And you repeat. So that helps your body calm, because we need to help our body. Our minds might be racing, but our bodies need help as well. Okay?
Yeah, super helpful, yes. Good. And the final thing I think about is what's already been mentioned, but connecting to people. That includes all the varieties of social media and technology that we have in this age of social distancing, super new for us. Mm-hmm. Please, FaceTime, Messenger, any of the fun apps that we have that we can connect together are very important ways that we can stay connected. And finally, there may be a need for a therapist at this point in your life. Some of us feel incredibly overwhelmed, isolated, lonely, very, very fearful. A therapeutic relationship can be very powerful right now, to where you have that confidentiality and you have that lack of responsibility for worrying and being concerned about how someone else is receiving what you're processing. So you get to process, and the therapist will be there to support you. Reach out to your local care provider if that's the case. Reach out to LinkCare. We are very glad to accept any clients right now. We have a telehealth model available as well. So I know many of our talented clinicians would be honored to walk alongside you in this journey and this season of life. We're hoping for the best for everybody. We're praying for you all. God bless you, and thank you for watching.